There comes a moment in many lives when the silence becomes louder than the noise, when the phone doesn't ring, when advice stops coming, when encouragement disappears. It is in that moment we whisper to ourselves, "I'm on my own," and that realization can either crush you or awaken something fierce inside you. Because here is a truth few people say out loud: being alone is not a weakness. Often it is the beginning of real strength. Tonight, I want to speak about how to move ahead in life even when no one is there for you, not through false optimism, but through inner alignment, discipline and self-trust. Not by waiting to be saved, but by becoming someone who can stand. Most people don't fall behind in life because they are weak, untalented, or incapable. They fall behind because they are waiting. Waiting for a call, waiting for a push, waiting for someone to say, "It's your turn now." Waiting for permission, waiting for motivation to magically appear. And while they are waiting, life is moving. Life does not pause. Life does not feel sorry. Life does not slow down because you are confused or tired. Life responds to movement, not intention. You can have all the potential in the world, but potential that waits becomes regret. Dreams that wait turn into excuses. And here's the painful truth most people don't want to face: nobody is coming to save you. Not your friends, not your family, not the world. And the longer you romanticize rescue, the longer you stay stuck in the same place, telling the same story, living the same year over and over again. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is power. Acceptance is the moment you stop lying to yourself. It's the moment you stop saying, "If only they helped me," or "If only I had support," or "If only someone believed in me." Acceptance says, "This is my reality right now, and I will still move." Not tomorrow, not when it feels good, right now. There is a difference between surrender and clarity. Surrender says, "I can't." Clarity says, "I must." When you accept that no one is coming, you stop wasting emotional energy on disappointment. You stop checking your phone, hoping someone will notice your pain. You stop waiting for validation. And all that energy you were leaking into hope and frustration comes rushing back to you. Now it's fuel. Think about the young immigrant student who steps into a new country with nothing familiar. No friends waiting at the airport. No family checking in. No safety net if things go wrong. They don't get reminders to study. No one asks if they're okay. No one claps for small wins. Every failure is theirs to deal with alone. Every success silent. That kind of loneliness can destroy a person, or it can define them. Instead of collapsing under the weight of isolation, they accept a brutal truth. No one is coming. I must become my own structure. That sentence changes everything. Because now excuses have nowhere to hide. When there's no one to blame, responsibility steps in. And responsibility builds discipline. Discipline builds consistency. Consistency builds confidence. And confidence changes identity. That student wakes themselves up, pushes themselves, corrects themselves. They don't study because someone is watching. They study because their future depends on it. They don't show up on time because they'll be punished. They show up because they made a promise to themselves. That is what acceptance does. It strips away fantasy and replaces it with ownership. A lot of people are tired not because they work too hard, but because they keep fighting reality. They keep saying, "It shouldn't be like this," but it is. And once you accept what is, you free yourself to build what could be. You stop feeling betrayed by life because you stop expecting life to be fair. Fairness is not a requirement for greatness. Responsibility is. Waiting feels safe. Waiting feels comfortable. Waiting lets you say, I tried, without ever really trying. But movement demands courage. Movement demands effort when no one is cheering. Movement demands that you act even when you're scared, unsure, and unsupported. But movement is the only thing that changes outcomes. Look at people who transformed their lives from nothing. They didn't start with support. They didn't start with confidence. They started with a decision that said, I'm done waiting. A decision that said, even if I fail, I will fail moving forward. And failure while moving teaches you something. Failure while waiting teaches you nothing. The world doesn't owe you belief. You owe yourself effort. And the moment you accept that, something powerful happens inside you. You stop asking for permission. You stop explaining your dreams to people who don't understand your hunger. You stop begging for motivation and you start building habits. You stop hoping someone will see you and you start becoming undeniable. Acceptance hurts at first. It stings to admit that the help you wanted isn't coming. It hurts to realize that the applause might never happen. But pain that is faced becomes strength. Pain that is avoided becomes suffering. When you accept reality, you stop being shocked by obstacles. You expect them. And when you expect resistance, you prepare for it. Preparation is power. When you stop expecting rescue, you stop feeling abandoned. You realize you were never meant to be carried. You were meant to walk. You were meant to build legs strong enough to support your own dreams. You were meant to develop a spine that doesn't bend every time life gets heavy. Energy returns when excuses leave. Focus returns when fantasy disappears. Hunger returns when comfort is stripped away. And hunger is dangerous in a good way. Hunger wakes you up early. Hunger keeps you up late. Hunger makes you do what lazy people refuse to do. Hunger doesn't wait. There are people with less talent than you winning right now because they stopped waiting. There are people with fewer resources than you building something real because they accepted reality instead of fighting it. They didn't have more luck, they had more ownership. So if you're alone right now, if no one is checking on you, if no one is pushing you, hear this clearly, this is not a curse. This is training. This is life forcing you to develop internal drive instead of external dependence. This is where leaders are formed. This is where strength is built quietly when no one is watching. Stop waiting for motivation. Move first and motivation will catch up. Stop waiting for support. Become so disciplined that support becomes optional. Stop waiting for someone to notice your struggle. Turn your struggle into results so loud they can't ignore you. Acceptance doesn't mean you like the situation. It means you refuse to be controlled by it. It means you say, this is what I have and I will make it work. And people who make it work don't need perfect conditions. They create conditions. When you stop expecting rescue, you stop feeling small. You stand taller. You think clearer. You move with purpose. And one day, you'll realize the moment everything changed wasn't when someone helped you. It was when you stopped waiting to be helped. When no one is there for you, something dangerous starts to happen if you're not careful. The silence gets loud. The room feels heavy. And the voice you hear the most is not your parents, not your friends, not your teachers. It's your own. And if you don't train that voice, it will turn on you. It will remind you of every failure, every time you came up short, every promise you broke to yourself. It will ask you questions like, who do you think you are? And why even try? And if you let that voice run wild, it won't just slow you down, it will shut you down. You start replaying moments you wish you could erase. That test you failed, that opportunity you missed, that time you spoke up and nobody listened. You start doubting your worth, comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You criticize every move you make. If you rest, you call yourself lazy. If you try, you tell yourself it's not enough. And slowly, without realizing it, you become your own biggest obstacle. But here's the truth most people never learn. The voice that can destroy you is the same voice that can save you. The same inner dialogue that drags you down can also lift you up if you take control of it. Your mind is not your enemy by default. An untrained mind is. And nobody is born with a strong inner voice. It's trained, it's conditioned through repetition, just like a muscle. That's why elite performers don't leave their mindset to chance. Top athletes, surgeons, pilots, performers under extreme pressure, they don't wait for confidence to show up. They practice self-directed dialogue. They talk to themselves on purpose. Calm, firm, clear. When the crowd is loud, when the stakes are high, when mistakes happen, they don't panic. They guide themselves. Research in sports psychology has shown that athletes who use structured self-talk perform better under pressure than those who rely on hype or external encouragement. Why? Because pressure doesn't remove skill, it exposes mindset. External motivation is unreliable. People get busy. People disappear. Applause fades, likes drop. And if your belief depends on outside noise, then your confidence will rise and fall with other people's opinions. That's a dangerous way to live because the world is inconsistent. But your inner voice can be trained to be steady. When no one believes in you, belief has to become a discipline, not a feeling, not a mood. A discipline, something you practice even on days you don't feel strong, especially on those days, because belief is not about lying to yourself and saying everything is fine. Belief is about saying, this is hard and I'm still moving. Instead of asking, why is no one helping me? You have to learn to ask a better question, a stronger question. What does the strongest version of me do next? Not tomorrow, not when it's easy, next. Because powerful people don't think 10 years ahead when they are overwhelmed. They think one step ahead. They win the next decision. They control what they can control. You speak to yourself not as a victim, but as someone under construction. You don't yell at a building while it's being built. You don't call it useless because it's not finished yet. You understand the process, and you have to give yourself that same patience and that same firmness. Not softness that makes excuses, not harshness that breaks you, discipline with compassion. Think about how you talk to someone you care about who's struggling. You don't say, you're a failure. You say, get up, try again. You've got more in you. Why is it that we give everyone else grace but deny it to ourselves? A strong inner voice doesn't mean constant positivity. It means direction. It means when your emotions are all over the place, your inner voice brings you back to the mission. There will be days you wake up tired, days you feel behind, days you feel like everyone else got a head start. On those days, motivation will not save you. But your inner voice can say, we don't need motivation today. We need execution. That voice gets you out of bed. That voice reminds you why you started. That voice says, do the work anyway. And let's be real, nobody is immune to doubt. The difference is not that strong people don't hear negative thoughts. It's that they don't obey them. Thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Just because your mind says you can't doesn't mean you stop. You challenge it, you respond, you replace it. You say, watch me. You have to understand this, your inner voice is being shaped whether you like it or not. Every time you quit, it learns quitting is an option. Every time you push through, it learns resilience. Every time you speak negatively about yourself, it learns self-disrespect. And every time you stand firm, it learns confidence. You are training yourself every day with your actions and your words. That's why consistency matters more than intensity. One hype moment won't change your inner dialogue. But daily intentional self-talk will. Telling yourself the truth when it's uncomfortable. Reminding yourself of your standards. Saying things like, this is who I am becoming, not, this is who I've been. When the outside world is quiet, the inside world gets louder. And that's not a bad thing. It's an opportunity. It's a chance to become internally driven instead of externally controlled. To move because you decided to move. To believe because you chose to believe. To keep going even when nobody is clapping. There will come a time when people start noticing. When results start showing. When support starts appearing. But by then, you won't need it. Because you already built something stronger inside. You built a voice that doesn't panic under pressure. A voice that doesn't crumble under criticism. A voice that keeps you grounded when things go wrong and humble when things go right. And that voice wasn't given to you. You earned it through repetition, through struggle, through moments where quitting was easier, but you stayed. Through days when no one checked on you, but you still checked yourself. So train your inner voice. Talk to yourself like your future depends on it, because it does. Make it strong enough to drown out doubt, calm enough to handle chaos, honest enough to correct you, and powerful enough to push you forward when everything else is silent. Because when the noise fades, when the crowd disappears, when it's just you and the work, the voice inside your head will decide whether you rise or retreat. Pain is unavoidable. If you're breathing, if you're trying, if you're reaching for something bigger than where you are right now, pain is part of the deal. Anybody who told you success is painless lied to you. Growth hurts, change hurts, becoming someone you've never been before hurts. But hear me clearly, chaos is optional. Suffering doesn't have to turn into confusion. Pain doesn't have to turn into drama. And just because life hit you doesn't mean you have to fall apart. When people feel alone, that's usually when things start going left, the mind starts racing. Emotions take over. You overthink every conversation, every mistake, every delay. You complain not because you're weak, but because you're overwhelmed. Or you numb yourself scrolling, sleeping too much, distracting yourself, anything to avoid feeling the weight of what you're carrying. And before you know it, the pain isn't just pain anymore, it becomes chaos. And chaos will drain you faster than hard work ever could. But the people who actually move ahead, the people who survive seasons where nobody is clapping for them, they do something different. They don't deny the pain. They don't pretend it doesn't hurt. They organize it. They take all that frustration, loneliness, pressure, and they give it a container. They turn pain into structure. And structure gives pain a job. They create routines. Simple ones at first. Wake up at the same time. Make the bed. Get some movement in. Do the work whether they feel like it or not. Not because they're motivated, but because routine keeps them from spiraling. When emotions are unstable, structure becomes your anchor. They create rules. Not rules that punish them, but rules that protect them. Rules like, I don't skip twice. Rules like, I show up even on bad days. Rules like, I don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Those rules become boundaries between them and self-destruction. They create order, because when your outside world feels messy, you need something in your life that makes sense. Something predictable, something solid. Order doesn't remove pain, but it gives you a place to stand while you're carrying it. Look at so many successful creators, entrepreneurs, athletes, and leaders. Most of them didn't start with inspiration. They started with survival. They weren't waking up excited every day. They were waking up disciplined. They built rigid daily systems because structure kept them sane. Same wake up time, same work hours, same training schedule, same commitments. That repetition wasn't boring, it was stabilizing. Waking up at the same time told their brain, we're in control. Walking even when unmotivated told their identity, we don't quit when it's uncomfortable. Training the body steadied the mind, because when your heart is heavy and your thoughts are loud, movement grounds you. Sweat clears confusion. Effort organizes emotion. Structure is self-respect made visible. It's you saying, even though life is hard, I'm not going to abandon myself. It's you choosing discipline over emotional chaos. And discipline isn't about being harsh. It's about being consistent. When no one is there to guide you, routine becomes your guardian. When nobody is checking on you, your habits check you. When nobody is giving you direction, your schedule gives you purpose. You stop waking up asking, how do I feel today? And you start asking, what needs to be done? And that shift changes everything, because feelings change. Some days you'll feel strong. Some days you'll feel empty. If your actions depend on your emotions, your progress will be random. But when your actions depend on structure, progress becomes inevitable. You don't have to feel confident to show up. You don't have to feel hopeful to take the next step. You just have to follow the system you built. Pain without structure turns into excuses. Pain with structure turns into progress. Drama says, look at what I'm going through. Structure says, watch what I do anyway. Drama looks for sympathy. Structure looks for solutions. Drama keeps you stuck in the story. Structure moves you toward the outcome. Let's be honest. Some of you didn't fall behind because you weren't capable. You fell behind because your life had no order when things got hard. Your sleep was off. Your focus was scattered. Your days had no rhythm. And when pressure came, everything collapsed at once. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you need structure, not motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Structure shows up whether you're tired or not. Structure doesn't care about your mood. It cares about the mission. And when you commit to structure, something powerful happens. Your confidence grows quietly. Not because life got easier, but because you got steadier. You stop reacting to everything. You stop letting small problems feel like the end of the world. You stop being surprised by struggle because your routine holds you together when emotions try to pull you apart. This is especially important when you're alone, when there's no mentor checking your progress, no coach pushing you, no friend reminding you of your potential. In those moments, your structure becomes your support system. Your routine becomes your accountability partner. Your discipline becomes your protection. And don't confuse structure with perfection. You're going to mess up. You're going to miss days. You're going to feel off sometimes. Structure isn't about never failing. It's about recovering quickly. It's about having something to return to when life knocks you off balance. Every time you choose structure over chaos, you're telling yourself, I matter too much to live recklessly. You're saying, my future deserves order. You're saying, even if today hurts, I'm building something that will outlast this pain. Pain doesn't disappear when you get disciplined, but it stops controlling you. It stops dictating your behavior. It stops turning into self-sabotage. And over time, the same pain that once overwhelmed you becomes proof of your strength. So don't turn your pain into drama. Don't let it make you loud but stagnant. Turn it into structure. Turn it into habits. Turn it into consistency. Let it sharpen you instead of scatter you. Because when the storm comes, and it will, the person with structure doesn't panic. They adjust. They stay grounded. They keep moving. And eventually, they realize something powerful. The pain that once threatened to break them became the discipline that built them. Comfort is always talking to you, whispering. Comfort says, you've done enough for today. Comfort says, you deserve a break. Comfort says, just one more scroll, one more episode, one more excuse. Comfort is focused on right now, how you feel in this moment, how to avoid discomfort, how to escape pressure. And when you're alone, when nobody is watching, nobody is pushing, nobody is holding you accountable, comfort becomes even louder. But responsibility speaks differently. Responsibility doesn't care how tired you feel. Responsibility doesn't negotiate with excuses. Responsibility asks a harder question. What will make me stronger later? Not today, not this hour, later. And that question changes the direction of your life. When you are alone, comfort feels like relief. You tell yourself, I've been through a lot, I deserve this. And maybe you have. But growth does not live where comfort lives. Growth lives where responsibility is heavy, where discipline is uncomfortable, where effort is required even when no one is cheering. Scrolling feels easy. Distractions feel harmless. Excuses feel reasonable. But comfort has a hidden cost. It steals your future in small, quiet ways. One wasted hour doesn't seem dangerous. One skipped day doesn't feel like failure. But stacked over time, comfort creates a life you never meant to live. Responsibility does the opposite. Responsibility is weight. Responsibility is pressure. Responsibility is waking up and saying, no one is forcing me to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. And that weight, over time, builds strength. You don't get stronger by avoiding the load. You get stronger by carrying it. History shows this again and again. People who endured isolation, hardship, unfair conditions, they didn't come out clear because life was kind to them. They came out clear because responsibility gave their suffering direction. Explorers who crossed unknown lands alone, thinkers who spent years misunderstood and ignored, reformers who stood firm when support was nowhere to be found, They weren't comfortable. They were committed. Responsibility gives suffering a purpose. Without responsibility, pain feels pointless. You ask, why me? You feel targeted. You feel unlucky. But when you take responsibility, pain becomes fuel. It becomes training. It becomes preparation. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this building in me? That shift changes everything. When you take ownership of your future, even when it feels unfair, you reclaim power. You stop waiting for conditions to improve. You stop asking life for permission. You stop saying, once things get easier, I'll try. And you start saying, even if this stays hard, I'm moving. Comfort waits for the right mood. Responsibility creates momentum regardless of mood. Comfort needs motivation. Responsibility runs on commitment. Comfort needs applause. Responsibility works in silence. And let's be real, being responsible when things are easy doesn't mean much. Anybody can work when they feel good. Anybody can stay disciplined when results come fast. The real test is when you're alone, when nobody is checking on you, when nobody would know if you quit. That's where responsibility becomes identity. Responsibility is you doing the work when nobody is clapping. Responsibility is you preparing for a future you can't see yet. Responsibility is you keeping promises you made to yourself when breaking them would be easier. And yes, it feels unfair sometimes. You look around and see people doing less, trying less, still winning. You see people with support systems you don't have. You see people who seem to get opportunities without earning them. Comfort says, see, life isn't fair. Slow down. Responsibility says, good. This is making me stronger. Power doesn't come from fairness. Power comes from ownership. When you take responsibility, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You stop blaming your past. You stop using your pain as permission to stay small. You say, I may not have chosen this situation, but I choose how I respond. And that choice gives you meaning. Meaning is not found lying around waiting for you. It's not hiding in comfort. It's not something someone hands you. Meaning is carried. You carry it through responsibility, through effort, through commitment, through sacrifice. You carry meaning when you show up tired. You carry meaning when you keep going despite doubt. You carry meaning when you choose discipline over distraction. And that meaning gives you strength when motivation disappears. Comfort feels good now, but leaves you empty later. Responsibility feels heavy now, but gives you pride later. One builds regret, the other builds character, and character lasts. There will be days you don't feel inspired, days you don't feel hopeful, days you feel behind. On those days, comfort will offer you escape, responsibility will offer you growth, and the choice you make in those quiet moments will shape who you become. You don't need permission to be disciplined. You don't need approval to take ownership. You don't need perfect conditions to be responsible. You just need a decision that says, I'm done living for comfort. A decision that says, I'll do what's required, not what's easy. A decision that says, my future deserves effort. Responsibility doesn't make life painless, but it makes pain meaningful. And meaningful pain is survivable. Meaningless pain breaks people. So when you feel alone, don't run to comfort. Run to responsibility. Let it ground you. Let it focus you. Let it give your struggle direction. Because comfort will never ask much from you, but responsibility will turn you into someone you respect. And that respect That quiet confidence comes from knowing that even when it was hard, even when it was lonely, even when it felt unfair, you carried the weight anyway. There comes a point in your life when everything changes, not because the world changed, but because you did. This is the final transformation. This is where the excuses run out. This is where dependency dies. This is where you stop looking around for someone to save you and realize the truth. The person you've been waiting for is already here. Think back to a time when you needed encouragement. A time when one word could have kept you going, but nobody said it. Think about a moment when you were lost and needed guidance, but there was no one to point the way. Think about a time when you felt exposed, unprotected, like life was hitting you from all sides and nobody stepped in. That version of you was real. That pain was real, and you don't erase it. You don't forget it. You use it. Because instead of letting that absence harden you in the wrong way, you let it shape you. You make a decision, I will become what I once needed. When no one defends you, you learn to stand upright. Not with arrogance, with backbone. You stop shrinking to make other people comfortable. You stop explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand you. You learn how to hold your ground, speak clearly, and walk away when respect is missing. You don't wait for backup, you become your own. When no one reassures you, you learn inner stability. You stop looking for constant validation. You stop asking, am I good enough? Every time something goes wrong. You learn how to sit with yourself in silence and not fall apart. You learn how to trust your preparation more than your emotions. You learn how to calm your own storm. That kind of stability is rare, and it's built, not given. When no one opens the door for you, you build the strength to knock. And when knocking doesn't work, you build your own door. You stop waiting for invitations. You stop saying, maybe one day they'll notice me. You notice yourself. You invest in yourself. You put yourself in rooms you were never invited into by becoming undeniable. That's when the shift happens. At first it hurts because you realize how much you needed others, how much you hoped someone would step in, and accepting that they didn't, it stings. But over time, something powerful replaces that hurt. Pride, self-respect, confidence rooted in experience, not approval. You stop needing support to survive. And that's when support starts to show up. Not because you begged for it, not because you chased it, but because strength attracts connection. People are drawn to those who carry themselves with purpose, to those who don't collapse under pressure, to those who don't need rescuing. When you become solid, people feel it. When you become reliable, opportunities trust you. When you stop asking for permission, doors start opening. But even if they don't, you're still good, because by this point, you've already become what you once needed. You no longer depend on external encouragement to move forward. You've learned how to talk to yourself when things get hard. You've learned how to push when motivation is gone. You've learned how to protect your vision when doubt shows up. And that's power. A lot of people stay stuck because they're still waiting for someone from their past to show up in their present. Waiting for an apology, waiting for recognition, waiting for someone to finally say, I'm proud of you. But freedom comes when you stop waiting and start becoming. You don't need them to validate your growth. You don't need them to approve your direction. You don't need them to understand your journey. You understand it. And that's enough. Becoming the person you once needed doesn't make you cold. It makes you capable. It makes you dependable. It makes you someone who can give strength instead of constantly needing it. And one day, you'll realize that your pain didn't disappear, it transformed into wisdom. Now you can encourage yourself and others. Now you can guide yourself and lead others. Now you can protect your peace and help others find theirs. That's legacy. And here's the real secret. The moment you stop needing help to survive is the moment life trusts you with more. More responsibility, more opportunity, more influence. Not because you asked for it, but because you're ready for it. So don't resent the times nobody showed up. Those moments trained you. Don't hate the loneliness. It introduced you to your own strength. Don't regret the struggle. It taught you who you could become. You didn't break, you didn't fail, you evolved, and now you walk forward different, steadier, stronger, not waiting, not hoping, not begging. You walk forward as the person you once prayed would appear. Being alone is not the end of your story, it is the forge. This is where resilience is shaped. This is where identity is formed. This is where you learn that your worth does not depend on witnesses. So if today you feel unseen, good. If you feel unsupported, good, because you are being prepared for a life where your strength comes from within. Move forward anyway. Stand anyway. Build anyway. And one day you'll look back and realize you were never abandoned. You were being built